This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Erev Shabbos Rabosai, Agun Chodesh, Afreilchen Chanukah. As we prepare for Shabbos, Parshas Miketz, Shabbos Chanukah, we have quite an amazing topic today. This past summer, I had the privilege to speak on a trip to. We went to southern Spain. We visited Malaga, Marbella. We went to other very important communities, and one of the places we visited, we went to the community of Seville, where the Ritva was, and we also had the opportunity to go to Morocco. And I want to tell you today about a wondrous city in Morocco. And you're probably wondering, why in the world is a rabbi telling us about Morocco? He probably had nothing prepared for Chanukah, and he's giving some leftover material that he gave over on the trip. No, I never even gave this over on the trip. I wasn't aware of this on the trip. I want to thank my friend in Virginia, Gedalia Schwartz, who got me a sefer called Chachmei Morocco, and on the plane ride back, I actually spent a lot of time learning from it, and I came across something really wondrous. Okay, so we begin with a comment from the Sefer Chachmei Morocco, written by Harav Shimon Sar Shalom. Ha'ayara Debdo. Now I'm going to tell you about the city of Debdo. When we went to Morocco, we visited Tangier. So you see on the map, Tangier is like the northern port city. Now, some of the big cities in Morocco, the royal cities of Morocco are Casablanca, and Meknès, Rabat, Marrakech, and of course Fez. But there is a city on the map, we'll see if you could find it. It's called Debdo. Debdo. Yep. Yeah, you see it? It's sort of on the right side, northeastern corner of Morocco. You see it?
No. Is that a village that's been there for thousands of years?
I'm not sure. We're about to learn what the origins of the city are. So we have in the Sefer Chachmei Morocco, Ha'ayara Debdo, the city of Debdo, Hashochenes B'tzoin Mizrach Morocco, which resides in northeastern Morocco, Mitzdayenes Benoif Marhev Ayin V'shoiv Lev, excels in wondrous beauty. Debdo Mukefes Mikol Avarel B'fardesim Melavlevim. It's surrounded on all sides with blooming orchards. Bechorshois oiren sefufais. Plowed over with all kinds of produce of estois miras zehubim, golden fields of amber grain. This is not talking about the United States of America. This is talking about the city of Debdo. Haderach hamovil Debdo, the road that reaches Debdo. Overes benos lahamulas nach leimai mayonos shoifim. That road passes through streams and rivers and flowing water sources. Mishloishes Avarel, on three sides, Meuteres Ayar Bahari Ad Gavoyim. The city is encircled on three sides with majestic peaks. Asher Boy HaChoyref, that when the winter comes, Miskashtim Heim, they are adorned B'matet Sachar Shel Sheleg Boyhek, with piercing white shining mountains. V'ha'oimed mulam, one who stands opposite the scene of Debdo, Mishtaya, is a wonder, L'noichach yoifi habriya, in the presence of the beauty of creation. Uchemei elav mismaltois mipiv milim. It's like the words just jump out of his mouth. Marabu masech Hashem. So that's just the backdrop of the topography and landscape of this city. So you say, why in the world is Rabbi giving a shiur about topography of Moroccan cities that I never heard of, nor really care that much about? Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about the city of Debdo. It's a Jewish city. But not just an ordinary Jewish city. Look at number 3. Ulam legabe ha'ama Yehudi noivea yichuda shel Debdo min ochlosia michaz zamina shagarba. Regarding the Jewish population, there is a unique feature, and that is Roiv Yehudi Debdo Hayu Kohanim. Most of the Jewish population of Debdo are priests. Not only regular Kohanim, Yuchasim b'yoser, Miyuchastika Kohanim. Mitzatzav shal Aaron HaKohen. Direct in line from Aaron HaKohen. So you say, yes. That, what a coincidence. Not only are they Kohanim, they actually come directly from Aaron HaKohen. Well, we'll see that there are some Kohanim that are more miyuchas than others. All Kohanim are created equal, but some are more equal than others. So let's examine. What does this mean? Let us examine what this means. How did Jews ever get to Debdo? And how is it that most of the city of Debdo are Kohanim? So now I'm going to read to you from a sefer called Yachas Debdo HaChadosh by Rabbi Eliyahu Rafal Marciano. Now, what kind of name is Marciano? Sounds like a Spanish name. It's actually probably Spanish, and we'll see. In fact, it is a Spanish name. Now, let me tell you something very interesting. We know the Jews were exiled from Spain in 1492. But 1492 was not really the greatest tragedy in Spanish history. 1492 was actually, in a way, one of the best things that ever happened to Spanish Jewry. Everything's relative. You see, in 1391 was probably the greatest tragedy that ever happened in Spain. And that is, in 1391 there were 600,000 Jews in Spain, of which probably about 350,000 converted to Christianity. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, tragedy that ever happened to our people. People are not even aware of this date. Everybody knows Holocaust, pogroms, and everybody knows about the Inquisition. 1391 was much more acute. 1391, the vast majority of the Jewish people left Judaism. Sure. And look at number 4. One of the most prestigious cities in Spain was the city of Seville. Anybody know which Rishon came from Seville? The Ritva. The Ritva came from Seville. His name was Rav Yomtov di Ashevila of Seville. Also the Avudraham came from Seville. So we have over here in number 4. Kehila Sevilla Zachsa B'Tayar Yerushalayim Shel Sfarad. Seville was known as the Jerusalem of Sfarad. Why? B'schus mishpachos miyuchasos, in the merit of the very of pure lineage, the families of the stock of the families that lived there. Mishpachos kedoshos, mishpachos atzul hayudas yushalmas, families that came straight from Jerusalem. Asher meireshus hayishva Yehudi b'Sfarad hayuhem. They were from the first settlers of Spain. Halos hayikari shel kehila. They were like the backbone of the kehila. B'Sevilla yashu Yehudim migalos Yushalayim. In Seville lived Jews who were exiled straight from Jerusalem, and they are the ones who the Ibn Ezra wrote a famous kina for the Jews of Andalusia. By the way, speaking of the Ibn Ezra, one of the Zmiros that we sing Friday night was written by the Ibn Ezra, but the Ibn Ezra wrote a Zemer for one time a year. And that is, Ibn Ezra wrote a special Zemer, you could look in your Zmiros, for Shabbos Chanukah. The Zemer for Shabbos Chanukah was written by none other than the Ibn Ezra. It's called Hai Hai Beis Kor, Timkar. You take a look in your bencher. So the Ibn Ezra writes sort of a eulogy for the Jews of Seville. Aha Yorad Alei Sfarad V'Rosh Ekarach Umar Etzrach Al Golos Ashevilya. He refers specifically to the Golos of Seville, Alei Nesiim, Mekruim, B'Shemos V'Chachamea, about the prestigious Jews who were there. Who was there? The family of Abarbanel, of the Avudraham, the family of David, Gavishon, and keep this in mind, the family of Kohen Sakili. Now, there is a strong connection between the family name Kohen Sakili, keep that in mind, the name Kohen Sakili, from Debdo, that there is a very strong connection that they originated in Seville. In fact, it's even mentioned in a letter that was sent about 300 years ago from the chief, from the head of the Kehila of Debdo, to somebody by the name of Rabbeinu Yaakov Ibn Sur from the city of Fez. And he writes, we are from the community of Seville. In other words, recognizing that the origin of the Jews of Debdo are from Seville. And the above mentioned Beis HaKnesses is in Seville. And he writes, I am Yosef ben Shimon HaKohen Sakili. So that means there is a strong connection between those Jews who were exiled from Seville and the Kehila of Sfarad. In other words, to the point where the Avos, who were Megurash, they called the place that they dwelled in Morocco, Seville. In other words, they named the location where they lived in Morocco, Seville. Now, I want to tell you something amazing. This name, Sakili, is actually very much connected to the name Tzadok. What is the gematria of Sakili? Sakili is 200. What's the gematria of Tzadok? Tzadok, Tzadi is 90, Daled Vav is 10, Kuf is 100. The gematria of Tzadok is 100. That teaches you that the Kohanim in Debdo, they trace their lineage back not just to Aaron HaKohen, but a specific line of Kahuna, and that's the line of Tzadok HaKohen. Tzadok HaKohen, one of the prestigious Kohanim in times of David and Shlomo. So the Kohanei Debdo were not only Kohanim, they were Kohanim Yuchasim, dating back to the times of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, and they are he writes in the last paragraph over here, HaKohanim hayu bein ha-mishpachas harishonos sheherkivu es hagarin harishon shel kilo asilu afrach litzmach l'makom. They were from the first who settled the city of Debdo. So we'll take a look at number 5. Back to the Sefer Chachmei Morocco, a very, very beautiful Sefer. Nice pink color with pictures of all kinds of Moroccan rabbis wearing very beautiful turbans. By the way, they're much cheaper than Stramlach. Just much more convenient.
How come the Hasidim didn't adapt it?
What?
How come the Hasidim didn't adapt it?
Well, in Russia, if you wear a shmat on your head, it ain't keeping you warm. But when you're living in the desert on 150 degrees in the winter, in December, you're going with the shmata, you're not going with the shtreimel. Okay. So the Sefer Chachmei Morocco says like this: Tchilas hayishuv hayehudi bedevdo. The first settlers of the Jewish community in Debdo hay b'shnas hey alafim kuf non alaf 151. Never forget the date 151. What is the English date 151? Remember the formula? Just add 1240. Whenever you have a Hebrew date, you add 1240. So 151 plus 12 is 1391. But Oisa Shana, that year, Garshu Yehudei Sevilla, the Jews of Seville were exiled. Shebesfar la'achar shesav l'kashas, they suffered terribly. Hereg, Ubiza. Echad mi ga'inei Sevilla, one of the ga'inim of Seville, Rab David HaKohen. Higia la'achar nedudim l'slois la'yara Debdo. After many treacherous wanderings, he reached Debdo. Ba'isa yamim, those days, hoiso adama saviv la'yara tzchicha v'shevema, it was a barren land. Rab David HaKohen noatz es makalei b'cholos hazahubim. He stuck his staff in the golden sand. V'chal ha'anoshim sha'amdu sevivai. And all the men that were around him, hishto lamara pela she'ira, wondered at this great miracle. In the place that the tzaddik of David HaKohen stuck his stick, tzatz lepesa mayim zakim. All of a sudden, a spring of water appeared. Can you imagine in the desert, in the Sahara? No, it wasn't the Sahara Desert, but in a barren land, he stuck his stick. Legend has it, and a brook appeared. So Rabbi David saw in this, in Ois Min HaShamayim, that he needs to settle this place. So he sent message to his brothers, the Kohanim, that they should bring the troops, bring the gang. This is where the Jewish community in Debdo started. Kihila Balas Noif Yichudei Shur Kohanim, a very prestigious community that is mostly Kohanim. Now, Kihila Sakanim Debdo Shichus of Ninjal Malakosh Ad LeKohanei HaMikdash. These Kohanim trace their lineage back to the Kohanim of the lineage. Nizaru B'chol Adoros. They were careful. Loyally Tama B'kilos Acher Shedim Ezer Menakuna. They only married other Kohanim. It was a purebred city of Kohanim. They preserved their lineage literally for hundreds and hundreds of years until we'll see what day. Now, you want to know, why am I talking about this? Aside from the fact it's very interesting to me that there could be a Jewish city in Morocco which is predominantly Kohanim. Imagine if I would tell you, Monroe, it's mostly Kohanim over there. Or imagine, Borough Park, mostly Kohanim. I mean, come on, give me a break. Many shuls, they're hard pressed to find a Kohen. And this is a whole city which is mostly Kohanim. Now let me tell you something. Being that the fact that the majority were Kohanim, there was one Yom Tov a year that they celebrated different than any other place in the Jewish world. And that is the Yom Tov of Chanukah. Because since Chanukah was Al Yedei Kohanecha HaKadoshim, they took a special pride in the Yom Tov of Chanukah. And they have Minhagei Chanukah that no other Jewish community in the world has. So for example, we're going to a new sefer now. It's called Ir HaKohanim Debdo. So far we quoted from Chachmei Morocco, and we quoted from the sefer Yachas Debdo HaChadosh by Rabbi Rafal Marziano. Now we're quoting from the sefer Ir HaKohanim Debdo from also Rabbi Rafael Marziano. And he writes, Chanukah, Nahagu laharbois besimcha, uv'macholam b'yom echad, uv'yom ches shel Chanukah. Now it's very interesting, Rabbi say, that the Maril brings down that the first day of Chanukah and the 8th day of Chanukah is different than the rest of Chanukah. It has more Kedusha. And that is why, there's a famous comment of the Rekeach. The 25th word of the Torah is Ar Vayar Likim Ki Toiv. On the letter Toiv, on the Ois Tes, Rekeach writes, there are 4 crowns. 4 times Tes is 36, corresponding to the 36 Neos of Chanukah. The question though is, the Ois Tes in our Sefer Torah only has 3 crowns. He probably refers to the fact that on the word Toiv, there are 3 crowns on the Tes and 1 crown on the vase. Total of 4. Be it as it may, the Tes times 4, which equals 36, is a remnant to the 36 Neros of Chanukah. Then you have the Vav, and then you have the vase. What's Vav plus vase? 8. The 8 days of Chanukah. So the question is, why are we breaking it up into 2? And the answer is because there are 2 parts of Chanukah. They're the middle 6 days, and then they're the first day and the last day. In fact, the Maril writes that in ancient times, the custom was not to do malacha on the first and last day of Chanukah. But be it as it may, in Debdo, they ate special foods on the first and last day of Chanukah. And on the first night of Chanukah, they learned the Megillah. They learned Megillah Antiochas. And they learned the story of Yehudis. Rabbi say they had much more minhagim. So there's a sefer called Kovetz Gilyonos Meireach Nichayach. I doubt you have it at home, even in the basement. And on page 318, it's brought down over here. The Minhag Yehudei Debdo, they say Hallel every night of Chanukah. B'li bracha. In Debdo, because they're a city all of Kohanim, they sing Hallel every night of Chanukah. Here you have a letter. Heruni Yedidi Ayakar Rabbi Yaakov Mizrahi. Lash goes to Mayin Amoyed. Minhag Miyucha Nishtamra B'Debdo. Minhag Shenagaba B'Mei Chanukah. Loimer Gam B'Leilas Chanukah Hallel Sholem B'li Bracha like on Pesach. U'Mesayras Hoysa B'Yadam. They have a tradition. Sheminhag Zeh Makori Oid B'Yamim Kedumim. This minhag goes back to early times. Mimei Shoshala Hachashmonon B'Yerushalayim B'Yois Beis Hamikdash Al Machaynoi. And I will rejoice greatly. Okay. So, Marav Rabbi, I want to turn your attention briefly to number 13, where the Sefer Chachmei Morocco speaks about some of the Minhagei Chanukah in Morocco. Minhagim Shainim Hayanugim B'Karav Kayanei Debdo. In Debdo they had very interesting Minhagim. Shainim Nehugim B'Kilas Acheros that were not noig in other communities. L'moshal, b'chag ha-Chanukah, noagu loimer halel b'li bracha midei laila k'may b'chag ha-Pesach, like we mentioned. In Debdo, the minhag was to say halel every night of Chanukah. This was a custom that they maintained since the time the Beis Hamikdash stood. Many of the great sages of Jerusalem, many of the rabbis in Jerusalem, when they would have a firstborn, they needed a real kohen, not one of these kohanim. They just walk up for the first aliyah. We don't know what they are. We hope they're Jewish. No, they would go to Debdo and take back a kohen of Debdo. Shechazku kohanim amitiyim. They would go to Kohanim of Debdo, that we have a tradition that they are true kohanim. Mesupar gamal gdoli yisol shehol kohanim Debdo k'delis bar v'yam berachas kohanim. Many Gedolim travel to Debdo at least one time in their life to hear berachas kohanim from a real, authentic kohen. Well, on that note, I want to bring to your attention, look at number 12. This comes from the Sefer Kovetz Gilyonos Meireach Nechayach in the Tafshin Ayin Beis edition. No, one second. Just joking. Go to number 8. This is the Tafshin Ayin Beis, page 402 edition. That this is a letter written to Rav Gamliel HaKohen Rabinovich. And the letter says as follows. Everybody knows the Segula of Berachas Kohanim. And look what Rav Ben Zion Mutzafi writes about in his Sefer Archos Tzion. So let me tell you a story that it says in the Sefer Yisrael Saba about the travels of Rabbi Yisrael Abu Chatzera. Who's Rabbi Yisrael Abu Chatzera? The Baba Sali. There it says he lived in the region of Tafilalt in Morocco. And in Tafilalt, it's like, in the other communities, they didn't have one kohen. There was not one kohen in the whole Tafilalt. Ad Sha'agoyin HaTzadik Reb David Abu Chatzera brought a kohen from Debdo that was full of kohanim, and in order to be mekayim the mitzvah of Pinyin Ben and Berachas Kohanim, his name was Rabbi Yoah HaKohen. And Rav David taught him to be a Talmid Chaver. And Rav David loved this Kohen so much that he took him as a son-in-law. No. Rav David married his daughter. Rav David married this Kohen's daughter. Now and his name was Chana. So Chana became Chana Abu Chatzera. Rabbi Yisrael, the Baba Sali, was mechabed the Rabbanas Chana very much because she was the wife of Reb David Abu Chatzera, and she was also a Kohenes. And he would call her a name of kavod, Benas ala Kohen, or Lala Chanu, Kahana. Okay, so here's the story. What we see from here is how much the Gedolei Tzadikim would search after Berachas Kohanim to the point where they would import them from other cities. Now we know that in those days traveling was not like it was today, especially to get from Debdo to Tafilalt. Just to say Tafilalt is hard. Imagine actually getting there, right? And certainly from the region of Tafilalt until Debdo, it's a very long travel. But they didn't. These rabbis went through all the travail just to be zocheh to hear Birchas Kohanim. So, Marav Rabbi say, let's go back to the Minhagei Chanukah of the city of Debdo, and then you're going to see how serious these Kohanim took their lineage. Look back at number 13. So, in the second paragraph, L'chag HaChanukah, Hoysa beDebdo mashmos michades b'mina. There was a certain atmosphere in Debdo on Chanukah that was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Kohanei ha'ir yadu shenes Chanukah nizkaf loy b'mat l'schusam shel achayim ha'kohanim. They realized that the miracle of Chanukah was in no small measure due to the merit of their illustrious ancestors, shalachamu b'cherif nefesh, who risked their life uvigvura with courage, neged oivei ha'am, against the enemies of our people. V'libam hayamolei gaiva alkach, and they were full of pride. Ukshahayu oimdim betfila, when they stood in daven and they said, Nisim v'neflois al yedei koyanecho hakedoshim Hayalibam roited misrakshas, their heart quaked. They were the descendants of the family of the Chashmonam. Well, Mar Rabbi say, let me tell you a little bit more. Let us go to 14 and then we'll see if we have more time. Now I'm going to tell you about some of the prestigious families of Kohanim who lived in Debdo. You have the Sakili family. We mentioned that Sakili is the Gematria Tzadok, and we have the Marciano family and the Ben Naim family. They produced many, many generations of Tamei Chachamim. So I'm going to tell you one story about one of the great Chachmei, Debdo's Chusa Yagen Aleinu, that a very tragic thing happened to him. But this is a story of Moroccan lore. Echad mei Chachmei Debdo Muflagim Hay Rabbi Yitzchak ben Naim. He had a great rabbi who lived there, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Naim, Shechai Lefnei Kamasam Chamishan, lived out 250 years ago. Pamacha Shah Rabbi Yitzchak B'Kfar Pachimas Hasamach LeDebdo. He was once staying in Pachimas. Always be careful when you stay in Pachimas. Kishiyotza mi Pachimas, when he left, Loshav Leveso, Slava La'arbi Echad Sha'asa Afuas Darka LeDebdo, he was accompanied by an Arab. Also, not a good idea. Me'achar Shal Hikar Heitev Esdach, because Rabbi Yitzchak ben Naim did not know the road. GPS had not made it to Morocco by then, at 250 years ago, but Oidem Hochmal, they're going, Hivchim Lepesm Rabbi Yitzchak Ki Arbi Malich V'drachim HaKakalosh Shenam Avilos LeDebdo. Rabbi Yitzchak realized there's something up here. The Arab is not taking him on the straight and narrow path. Meirega L'rega Gavar Patash Rabbi Yitzchak is becoming very afraid. Hu Haya Batuach, then he was sure, Ki Arbi Zarmim L'harga, this Arab was going to kill him. L'himali Kvar Yafshar, there was no escaping. But at least he wanted that Jews should find him and he should be Zoicha to Kaver Yisrael. So what did he do? Ma'asa. Hoitzi mikisei pisas niyar. He took out of his pocket pieces of paper and he started writing, the Arab's taken me, he's going to bury me, this guy, he's about to kill me, and he sort of left a trail. He dropped these notes on the whole length of the trip, Sha'avi Yavchin Badavar, without the Arab realizing. When they got to a desolate place, the Arab killed Rabbi Yitzchak ben Naim. After a few days, the family was looking for him, his Talmidim were looking for him, and they started searching for him, and they started to be very worried. And one of the people who were looking for Rabbi Yitzchak found a piece of paper, and he saw the whole Maisa and the whole trail that Rabbi Yitzchak had left, and they actually tracked him down, and they found where he lay, and they brought him to Kever Yisrael. His name was Rabbi Yitzchak Naim, Zechusa Yagen Aleinu, one of the Chachmei Debdo. What I want to end off with is more of a historical study of, it's really quite an unusual phenomenon to have a city, an Ir Ve'im Meklal Yisrael, that the majority of the city are Kohanim, and they came from Seville. So there's actually a historical discussion. When did Jews come to Debdo? Did they come in 1391 or did they come in 1492? I'll just point out to you that they took this city very seriously. If you were not a Kohen, they would kill you. Talk about elite living quarters. You could not live, you could be a big rabbi, you could even be a Levi. If you were a Levi and you try to live in the city, they would kill you in the city of Dan. Now the question is, who would kill you? So very interesting, you have a letter here in number, let's see. Let's see number 12. In the Sefer Kovetz Gilyonos Mereach Nichayach Va'atzayin Masher Isi B'Kuntras Shehestape Karav Gad Amar. A rabbi by the name of Gad Amar is Mesupik in the Hakdama of a Sefer HaMalchus, Rav David HaLevi. There's a big question. Why did Rav David HaLevi leave the city of Debdo and go to Fez? And two suggestions are offered. Either he went to learn from a great rabbi there, or the living quarters in Debdo were not good enough. But in this letter, it suggested another reason. Because if you read the history, Debdo Irak Kohanim, on page 42 that we're about to read, Leviim were not allowed to stay in the city of Debdo for more than one day. Hear this? There's a law in the city that if you were a Levi, you could not stay in the city for more than one day. Im Levi Yisho Yozmi Yamim V'Debroi Ha'akalim Hargoi. Who are the Akalim? Not the Jews. The Goyim would kill you. The Goyim would say, no, are you a Levi? And you would either leave or get killed. And now, nobody ever knew why this Levi died. Now they knew. He overextended the visa did not go after one day. Now we know why Rabbi David HaLevi left the city of Debdo. It's not that he went to learn somewhere else. He just saved his own skin. In the city of Debdo, it was so accepted that if you're a Jew, you had to be a Kohen. They would literally kill you if you were anything but a Kohen.
The Goyim killed you.
The Akalim.
How come? Why were they so protective of the Kohanim?
Maybe it was prestigious for them to be in a city only of Kohanim. They said, we hate Jews, but if we're going to have them, we only live with the Kohanim.
Maybe that's why they were killed out, so murdered.
No, that was in Spain in 1391. Here they're already in Morocco. Rabbi said, what's very interesting is, just as an aside, and then we'll go back to this, the Sefer Kara Kemach brings down that Chanukah comes from the word chinuch, to inaugurate. And what is Chanukah inaugurating? Chanukah is inaugurating the Yemais HaMashiach. And there's a question, in what way is Chanukah inaugurating the Yemais HaMashiach? Chanukah is an 8-day Yom Tif. We're lighting the candles, we're eating our latkes. How are we bringing in Yemais HaMashiach? But one of the interesting facets of Chanukah is that it's a miracle that took place through the Kohanim. It's the only Yom Tov of the year that we even have something remotely similar to that. That it's a Yom Tov that specifically came about through Kohanim. What's the meaning of that? What's the significance of that? There's a pasuk in Parshas Yisro. Va'atem tiyu li mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. You will be for me a kingdom of priests. Kohanim, raise your hand if you're a Kohen. Wow. We are not in the city of Debdo. That I could tell you. Here we have a tremendous crowd, unbelievable numbers, and there's not one Kohen. How's that possible?
My name is Aharon.
What?
My name is Aharon.
Yes, we have Mr. Heimowitz here from Kew Garden Hills. From Kew Gardens.
But I'm not a Kohen.
Oh, he's not a Kohen, even though his name is Aaron.
Okay.
And my brother's name is Aaron. He's not a Kohen. And I have a son, Naftali Aaron. Amazingly, he's not a Kohen either. But the miracle of Chanukah took place through the Kohanim. Pesach got nothing to do with Kohanim. Shavuos had nothing to do with Kohanim. No Yom Tov, anything, just Chanukah. You know why? Because the pasuk says, "Va'atem tiyu li mamleches Kohanim," but none of us are Kohanim here. So if you look on the Baal Turim says that we were all roy to be Kohanim, but we lost that. But la'asad lavai, every Jew is going to be a Kohen. Not only that, a Kohen Gadol. So Chanukah, which is the inauguration of the Yemais HaMashiach, was a special Yom Tov. It's like a practice for the future when we'll all be Kohanim. Now, let's just end, Rabbi Say. When did the Jews come to Debdo? Look at number 9. Number 9 is again a little bit of a description of the topography in the city of Debdo. Ha'ira Debdo Nimtzeis B'tzafon Mizrach Morocco. It's the northeast of Morocco. And it's one of the old, prestigious, ancient communities near Tafilaut in the southeast of the Medina. It's about 50 kilometers south of Fez. Okay. Look at number 10. So here we have the big question. Toldos Yehude Debdo Marosh Sevilla. There's a tradition, it's written here, that the Jews of Debdo, they have a tradition from generation to generation. They say they are the descendants of Gerushe Sfarad 1391. Look in number 10. Me'oz nichbisha Sfarad aidei hamazalamim b'meya hashminis. When the Muslims conquered Spain in the 8th century. Does anybody know what year did the Muslims conquer Spain? I'll tell you this, you'll never forget it. People will think you're a big historian after today's share. The Muslims conquered Spain in the 8th century in the year 711. Okay, that's where it comes from. So next time you go to 7-Eleven, remember that's the year that the Muslims conquered Spain. Nilchamu noitzim Muslim zebazeh. There's a big war between the Arabs and the Christians. By the way, whenever they fight each other, we wish them both Hatzlacha Rabba. And Hanoitzrim Ratzu Lito Min HaMusalmim Es Pri Kibusham. The Christians wanted to take back from the Muslims their conquest. And in the 13th century in Spain, the Christians had a small kingdom in Granada. And what's important to know is that the Muslims were much better to us in Europe and in Spain than the Christian world. The Christians in Spain and in France and in Germany were butchers. They were murderers. Their definition of their existence was to murder Jews. We fared much better under the Muslims. Now, Ratzon hashalitim lapoch esfar le'eretz notris nikia midasos lo notris. Basically, they the Christians wanted to accomplish something called reconquesta. They wanted to free the Iberian Peninsula from Muslim control. Kinas b'nei am asfardi bihudim ashir mukram mashotanos. They were very jealous of the Jews who were very powerful and prestigious. Mumarim shekichugu shekoma sheyudim chafetzim by huras hagayim, especially the Jews that were converted to Christianity were especially
suspect.
Were especially instigated against us. Malshinim b'nei Brish Shoshino Eitzel Rosh Hashanah Prat the Parshas Yosef Figo and Homlala. They were the main causes of Gerish Yehudi Seville and Spain in 1391, even before 1492. So now the question is, when did the Jews come to Debdo? So there's a sefer Yachas Debdo from Rav Shlomo HaKohen Tzaban. He says, Heyid Olav Bekinyan Shalem Me'achshav B'makam Shvua Shlomo Bar Yosef Uvahem Mishkan Loi Kol HaChelek V'Atzchus Sheyesh Lo B'Chatzeroi Yoim Beis Yodal Tammuz Shnas Shin Samach Zayin. What year is the year Shin Samach Zayin? 1607, in the city of Debdo. Harashach Hisuk Mishtar Zesh Mikiman Shabashat Shin Samach Zayin Hayil Yehudi Debdo Chatzis B'Nius Mishchos V'Yikon Marchim Zelazah V'Adei Sheoshev Delefnei Shanazu Shnas Shin Samach Zayin. They obviously got there before the year Shin Samach Zayin, which is 1607, at least 60 or 70 years before. That's six. Now let's think about that. 70 years before 1607 is 1530s. That means definitely soon after the Spanish Inquisition, many Jews made their way to Debdo. But the Maskana of the Rashach, he tries to bring a raya from a letter that was sent from the Rashi Kahal to the sages of Fez. He says, "V'zelashana zas zoyso das raboisai karv l'meya shana," close to 100 years. Mishayatsu aviseinu mi Debdo. Uvishnas tafnun chazarnu b'fkudas hamelach. We returned in the year 1690 b'fkudas hamelach yaram hoyde l'Debdo. U'cha'is nesaper l'chvoidchem parshas beis hakneses hanal aviseinu subulanu sheshama ya'avis aviseinu spalam kashagilos Debdo isa rabasiyam b'shnas shin yud shinun. They left in the year 1590 and they came back in the year 1690. That means in the year 1590 there were Jews in Debdo. Now the question is, were there Jews there in 1391? So he writes, Bedebdo hiskaima mesoras chaya. There's a living tradition and a stubborn tradition to say they are the descendants not of the Spanish Inquisition 1492 but much earlier of the expulsion of Seville in 1391. Harashach Kosev. Void matzos historis Ramash behem Kosev Shemo Ir b'Shem Sevilla b'Mavai HaYehudim. There are many ancient documents that refer to Debdo as Seville. Now why do you think Jews in Debdo would call it Seville? Must be because they came from there. Uvishtare miknas haganos or atzados haykozin shamashkem oisam mimayin shavilya. They would write in their in their purchases of fields that this field has a river from Seville. So the Rashach, who apparently is a historian about Moroccan Jewry, he comes to the conclusion, all of these documents indicate that they came from Seville. Must be a lot of Jews who were expelled in 1391, came to Debdo, and they themselves testify they are from Gola Seville, and they make a memory of their Gola, so it should not be forgotten. And therefore, look at the next paragraph. Loi b'chdi, it's not for naught, that the community of Debdo has close ties to the city of Seville. The Rashach writes, another proof that the many Kohanim were from the Golas of Seville, that if you look in the old cemetery, most of the Kfarim are Kohanim. Meaning, in the old cemetery, where? In Seville. In other words, how could we explain how you have a city in Morocco which is mostly Kohanim, and they came from Seville? Well, actually, if you look in the ancient cemeteries in Seville, most of the gravestones are of Kohanim. So Kviyas Harashach sheKohanim Rabim Garo b'Sevilla Hasfardes Hiamitis Umeduyaka Shekematzanu Shemeshpachas Rav Shegam Hayu b'Sevilla. There were many families of Kohanim in Seville. Yesh b'Shvilya Koyin ben Azar Kach b'Debdo Yesh Kohen Chanichas ben Azar. And many of the Kohanim of Seville have similar family names to the Kohanim of Debdo. And that is one of the connections between these two cities, and therefore many historians feel that the Yehudim who were exiled in 1391 moved to Debdo. Now, let's just take a look at a few of the unique features of the city, and when the city unfortunately stopped boasting this very pure lineage of Kohanim. First of all, so if you look at number 11, there are three unique facets of the community of Debdo from all the communities in Morocco. First of all, it's a city of Kohanim Yuchasim. Number two, most of the residents of the city are Jewish. And the unique status of the city is, he says like this, Shenis roiv hayusha bedebdo hayehudi al kain hine kois ir hayehudis debdo levasov debdo ad kama shahoisa kila ketana hoisa kila balas pazura dabdudis shabanel loy nisku es aksharmim kila saim. They wore special clothing. They had special embroidered clothing and special robes to mark their yichos and their unique status. Look in Ois Beis, Ir Kohanim. Kohanim Rabim Hoyu b'Shevilya sheb'Sfarad. There are many Kohanim in Seville, in Spain. V'kach metar bal koros Yehudim b'Sfarad. The historians of Spanish Jewry describe Hoya kasher nichbisha ir mamlechas Yehudim v'amanatzchem chilku b'neim shalol adam v'hinei olu b'gayrolo shel Asfian yoshvei chilak Yerushalayim. One of the conquerors of Spain, who was able to take hostage from the residents of the city of Jerusalem of Spain, Shabai Garu Tzatzoi Malchi Beis David HaKohanim Meshosa Beis Hashem, V'yachtav Huvu Banios Lumdinas Andalusia Ba'arim Cordova Granada Sevilla Mursa V'oid. They were brought from, so it sounds like he's writing that from Yerushalayim, it was brought together the descendants of King David and the Kohanim. Nachum Salushutz writes, in Seville, the Kohanim had a street just for themselves and a very holy shul. And the Rashach writes, there were many, many Kohanim in Seville. And the old cemetery in Seville, there is a tremendous section of Kohanim. At the end, now listen to this. At the end of the 18th century, You know how many Kohanim were in Debdo? There were more than 700 families of Kohanim. Not 700 Kohanim, but 700 families of Kohanim. That's big. What about Levium? HaLeviim einam rasham l'zavdel yosem yamima. If you were a Levi, you couldn't stay there more than a day.
Who washed the hands of the Kohanim?
Right.
Im Levi yishar yosem yamima b'Debdo. If they stayed more than a day, the Akalim would kill them. Now, we have another reference in this. Kan ha'achas heim roiv binyan shel hakehila.
Oh, wait, is it the same city or a different city?
Same city. B'nei hakad hashenis, the Kohanim, roiv minyan b'kila. In other words, you had two groups of people. You had Yisraelim and you had Kohanim, and if you were a Levi, you have to live somewhere else. And the city was what we have. We have this expression, v'hakohanim v'ha'am. You ever hear that expression? V'hakohanim v'ha'am. Well, that's something we had in Yerushalayim and we had in the city of Debdo. And here it's also brought down that they come from not just regular Kohanim, they come from the family of Tzadok, from Tzadok HaKohen. So that's based on the gematria that we saw, in the Sefer Yachas Debdo, that the gematria of Tzadok, which is 200, is the same as Sakili, which is also gematria 200. So now the question is: so if we go to Debdo today, are we going to see a city full of Kohanim? Well, look in Ois Gimel. We'll end with this: Mina Ameya Shmaina Asara. From the 18th century, Yoidimanu, we know Al Asara Sumeos Mishpachas, on tens and hundreds of families. Sheyatzu as Debdo, they left Debdo. V'Syashvu ba'Aram Acheros b'Morocco, Algeria. They went to other cities in Morocco and Algeria. Many other cities were full of people from this community. Their names are Barganet, Garsif, Kfar Leon, Misur, Marija, Grada. They left. Most Kohanim that live in Fez today came from Debdo. So, unfortunately, the city of Debdo no longer has that same prestige. However, those people who have a family history dating back to Debdo sort of preserve that tradition and take a lot of pride in it. This is for them, for the families of Kohanim, to be a descendant of the city of Debdo is the greatest honor, because it's basically the closest tradition of pure lineage that any Kohen could possibly have. To be able to do Berchas Kohanim, to be able to do Pidyon Haben, and as evidenced by the special minhag that they celebrated Chanukah in tremendous fashion and style. May we be zoicha to return to the Beis HaMikdash, to hear Berchas Kohanim from Kohanei Emes, and we should be zoicha b'nei Beis HaMikdash, Abiyas Kol Tzedek, Meher Yameinu, Amen.
Amen. Rabbi, there was another.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.